Hi everyone, welcome to the second video of the second part of my guide, how to connect Bubble and Xano together professionally. Uh, in this video, we're going to review one specific case where user authentication is required, but also the same user can log in from unlimited devices or browsers, and there is no need to set a custom limit to the duration of the session in each one. We'll let Bubble handle this. Essentially, what we will do is that we will use the Bubble built-in system of the user registration and sign in and combine it with the Xano authentication system using JWT tokens. So how are we going to do this? Let's review this diagram I have created over here. And as you can see, we have two different environments, the Bubble environment and Sun environment. But the Bubble environment is split into two sides, the client side and the server side. Essentially, the client side is your browser where you see the application and you can perform some actions or you can make some requests to the server side. I don't know if you knew this, but the API you configure in your API connector aren't actually being made from the client side. What you do is that you use a Bubble API to make a request to the server side, and in the server side is where the actual API call is built and made to the external service, in this case, Xano. So how is this going to work? We're going to store the access token and the refresh token in the user data table. That means that when I enter to the app in my client side, I will request the access token as I'm loading my current user, which is me. And then I'm passing that access token to all the API calls we are going to make to the Xano side. Of course, we just pass this access token to the server side, and in the server side, what happens is that the actual API call is built, as I said. You can add private information like the custom authentication we used in the previous video. I recommend you to look at that if you didn't, but if you haven't. But yeah, we can pass this custom auth header that will contain a secret key that will evaluate if this is a valid call or if it's coming from a valid source, and then the actual API call is going to be made, and it will pass the access token with all the extra private information to do the actual request to the Xano endpoint. But what is the thing? The JWT tokens expire after a certain time or duration just specified. Now, the issue is that you can't really kill these tokens. So ideally, these tokens shouldn't live that much. They should live something between, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. You can define that by yourself, but the longer the duration it is, the dangerous it becomes that someone could steal that token and give it a bad use. So my suggestion is to use not a long live duration. Maybe 1 hour is a good standard, as we're going to put extra layers of security, and it's not that easy to actually hack our system. But yeah, for this guide and for this use case in specific, we are going to use 1 hour for now, but you can configure that time as you want. So what we have to do is that this token is going to last 1 hour. So what it means is that every 1 hour our users will be kicked out, basically, because they will lose access to the Xano environment. So what we have to do is that we're going to use a refresh token that will actually make a special call to a specific endpoint in the Xano side to refresh this set of tokens before they expire, and then we are going to store them again in our user table. So as you can see, the big difference between this type of calls and the refresh call is that the um, the access token is being passed through all the requests that are being made from the client side, but actually the call that it's made to refresh the tokens, it's been initialized from the server side. I'm going to show you how to do this, but basically what we are going to use is backend workflows. If you don't know them, then I will suggest you to read the docs or see some tutorials in YouTube, or I don't know, in the forum. You can ask also about this, but yeah, I'm not going to be explaining it in detail. So hopefully you are able to understand. You already understand these concepts before jumping in this guide. So before any much more explanations, let's jump into it. This case has 10 steps, 11 steps, sorry. And I'm going to describe one by one. Maybe I will skip some of them and I will try to do some stuff faster because there are a lot of steps and it will take a lot of time to explain every detail. But still, you will have access to this guide that you can consult to maybe complement what I will be showing in this video in a specific. So, what is the first step? The first step is that we are going to create a new function from the library functions. We're going to create a new function in the function tab, and we're going to name it create auth tokens. This is a function we're going to use specifically to, as in the name says, or suggests, to create auth tokens. Actually, I already have this one created, but let's create it from scratch. So let's delete this. Let's add the function and we're going to call it create auth tokens, and I'm going to save this. Cool. So as I said, this is a function we will use very often to create some tokens for our users. So we are creating a function to make it easier for us to manage it in different instances when we refresh the tokens, when we're logging a user in, or when they are signing up. So yeah, that's basically it. And we will receive only one input, which is user ID. And this is the, let's use the table reference user. And this is the only input we're going to use to create the token. So this information is going to be stored in each JWT token. Now, what is the thing? We could pass more information to this token. We could pass more information to this function and store it in the JWT tokens. I don't know if you need this, but you can actually do that. But that's not something we're going to check today. That's something maybe I will review in another part of the guide or another video. I don't know. So what we want to do is that we want to create two new tokens. For that is go to the security options and we're going to press on create authentication token. So here's the authentication token and we're going to create an author token right away. Security, the create authentication token. So now we have two tokens created, but we have to populate this information, right? So the first one, we are going to call it access token. And the second one is going to be the refresh token. Let's update this right away. And for the access token, what we're going to do is that the integer ID will be the user ID. So when the call comes in and you pass this token, you will be able to identify who is the user that is making the call right away. Here, as I said, in extras, you can set as many information as you want. You will set the role or something, I don't know. But we are not going to do that right now. So we will skip this field. And yeah, the expiration is basically the duration. And this is in seconds. So as I said, we're going to use 1 hour, which is 3,600 seconds in total. And we're going to save. For the refresh tokens, the same thing. Also, we're going to use 1 hour of duration. And yeah, that's it. So now that we have created this create auth token function, we have to be able to retrieve these tokens that are being created. So we have to pass these variables to the response. I'm going to create one for the access token and one for the refresh token. There you go. Let's make sure that the naming of the keys matches because we're going to use these paths to access to this function results in the API endpoints. So that's the part one, right? We have now the refresh token and the auth token, access token, I mean, and we are returning them as expected. In the second step, we are going to create a new auth sign up endpoint in Xano. So basically, let's just use what already exists in the. Let's use the default template, but I'm going to create a new folder, demo auth, and let's create an authentication API endpoint, and let's call it sign up. Sign up is the first one, right? sign up. Yeah. So it's going to be of the type user, and well, make sure that you have a user table and you are enabling authentication um, using that table. Otherwise, you won't be able to see it in here as it described over here. So let's use user and let's save. So the endpoint has been created. It accepts three parameters by default: name, email, password. What it does is that it looks, you pass an email and it looks for that user in the user table using the email. And if it finds it, then it returns an error. If it doesn't exist, it means user equals null. Then it will continue as expected, and that makes sense because this is an endpoint to register users, and if they already exist, they shouldn't be able to register again. Then what we do is that we add the record as it doesn't exist, as this user with this email doesn't exist. We create the user passing all the parameters over here, and then the endpoint creates an authentication token for this user. In this case, what we are going to do is that we are going to delete this authentication token. And the reason is because we are going to actually use the function we just created. So we go to add stack function, choose the option custom functions, and then press on create auth tokens, the function we just created basically. So as we are creating a new user, we're going to pass this user ID. Oh, my bad. There you go. User.id. And actually, um, I'm going to update the name of this function variable as well. Save, and now I can return this by calling the tokens variable. And if you remember, we have here stored the access token. That's why I told you that you should make sure that the naming is consistent with the key or the path. And we are going to create a new one, tokens, and refresh tokens, and refresh tokens. There you go. Save. So now we are returning the access token and the refresh tokens. So as I told you, what we are going to do when the user registers, that they will receive this set of tokens, and those will be stored and this will be stored in the user data table. To be more specific, the current user. Now, we want to create a second endpoint called auth login. And you can imagine that we are going to use that one for login purposes. So we are going to create again authentication, auth login, and user, and save. And this will create again a new endpoint. It will take the email and password. And in this case, what it will do is that it will check first if the user exists. If it does, then it will check the password. If the password is valid, then it will create the token and send it back to the client side. Now, in our case, again, we're not going to use this one, so let's delete this. And we're again going to add our custom function, create auth tokens. So let's rename this right away, tokens. And the input is the user. Let's click this .id. And now the response will contain the tokens. You could pass it. Actually, you could pass it as it is right now, like tokens, and it will be useful still in the client side. But I like to pass them separately because it gives you more flexibility of what do you want to send back or not. It's just I just like to keep it separated. I suggest you to do so because you can have more control over your response, and yeah, it's easier to debug and stuff. So it's just a suggestion. You can just pass the tokens response of this function right away, but in my opinion, it's just best to have it separated. So I will look for the access token. And we're going to create a new one for the refresh tokens. Refresh token, I mean. Here you go. And let's save this. We have here the access. Let's rename it again. Okay. So we have the access token, refresh token, and that's it. So that's the step 3 of our, or step 2, step 3. This is the step three of our guide, and let's go to the step four. And now this is the interesting part. We're going to actually create a call to refresh the auth tokens. So how do we do this? Let's copy this naming because we're going to use it. Let's go back. Yeah, and here we're going to add a new endpoint, and actually we're going to start from scratch, and we are going to make it post um, and save, and it's going to call refresh auth tokens. So here basically the difference with the other calls over here is that this one should require authentication. And let's select this one, and yeah, there's the one, user authentication. I'm going to save this, and that's it. Oh, I forgot a detail that I will update right now because I think it's important. Let's go to the functions tab. Sorry, I forgot that when creating the function to authenticate, to create the tokens, there's something we have to actually to this extras object, and the thing we're going to add is this path called type, and here we are going to tell what type of token is this. It will be either access. I will set it as access, save. For the refresh, you can imagine set type going to be refresh. I'm hard coding this. You can store these values in a variable or something. I don't know. That depends how do you want to handle this. But I'm just going to hard code it, and that's it. So it is type refresh and type access. I forgot to save. So yeah, let's do it again. My bad. And I will explain right away why we want to do this. And actually, it's related to the endpoint we were just creating. Let's go back to the demo auth group. And here we have the refresh out tokens API. Okay, cool. So we enable authentication with a user table. You have to make sure that it's the user authentication. If you create the other table that also have authentication active, then there will be more options displayed here. So make sure that you're addressing the user authentication. So what are we going to do in this function is that we are going actually to check for the, not this in a function. What we're going to do in this API endpoint is that we're going to, first of all, just put a precondition onto the functions precondition, and we're going to check that from the auth extras, the path type, this must be equal to refresh. And the reason is because we want to only accept the refresh token to do this action. If we receive an access token, then this will return an error because we are checking that the type of this token is refresh. Yeah. Let's put something like not authorized, something like that. Access denied, unauthorized. You can put one error you will understand, right? And yeah, and if it does, and if this token is of the type refresh, then what we want to do is that we want to generate a new set of tokens. So we are going to add the function create auth tokens, and the ID will be the ID of the current token. As I told you, this ID is the ID of the user that for which the token were generated. So yeah, let's just save this. And again, I like to rename this to understand what is it about. Let's add this to the responses. So I'm going to add tokens, access token, okay, save tokens. Again, you can pass the tokens object as a whole if you want. In my case, I like to keep it separated. Save. And this one I will have to rename it again. Save. Okay, so again, to summarize this, when we want to refresh our tokens, we will make a request to this endpoint, it needs a JWT token in order to authenticate the user. When the token is received, it will check that the type of this token is refresh. If not, it will return an error. But if it is of the type refresh, it will generate a new set of tokens for the user with the ID that was stored in the authentication token, and it will return those that set of tokens to the client side, so we to the server side of Bubble actually, so we can store them in the Bubble database. And that's it for this step. Now let's see what's the next one. In the Bubble side, we have to add the access token and the refresh token text column. Oh yeah, we're going to do a simple setup in the Bubble side. Actually, I think I made some progress about this. If you take a look at my user table, we have here new fields. The ones that I want you to take, actually, I'm going to delete this one. The ones that I want you to add is the access token, refresh token, last updated date, which is the type date, and the schedule refresh workflow of the type text. As you may imagine, and yeah, it's obvious, but the access token will store the access token, the refresh token will store the refresh token. So it's those are the of the type text. But the last updated it will be of the last day of the type date. And the reason we're creating this field in specific is because we want to know when was the last time that this set of tokens were refreshed. So you could use another naming like last refreshed or something. Actually, that would make more sense, but I don't know. And we will have here another field called schedule refresh workflow, which is basically the flow that will be on charge of refreshing the back. This is the backend workflow that will be refreshing the set of tokens, and we are going to schedule. We are going to schedule it every time we sign in or sign up, and then from the call it will schedule itself again every 30 minutes. I'm going to explain everything in a few minutes, but in a few seconds. But I just wanted to explain that a little bit more in detail. As you can see, that's the step 5. So let's jump to the step 6, and I assume that here's where I should explain you why we have those fields, or not yet. That's like not yet. Okay. So what's the next step? Let's add the created endpoints to the API connector in Bubble. So what we are going to do is that we are going to add a sign up and the login calls. Also, we should add the refresh tokens call. Let me see that I'm not missing anything. Yeah. Yeah, that's the steps. Yeah, so what we have to do basically is add the calls to the API connector. So go to the plugins tab. If you don't have the API connector, install it. I have already 2 groups created. I will create a new one. Call it Xano. And here, I don't know if you watched the previous video, but I recommend you to take a look at it, because what we did is that we created a custom header that we will use to protect our global endpoints or public endpoints that don't need really user authentication. And ideally, you will add this here as well, because it will keep your calls more protected. Yeah, it doesn't harms to have it in there, but we are not going to check that right now. You feel free to watch the video after this one, or I don't know. Yeah, I think I strongly suggest you to do that. But let's add the calls now. So first of all, let's call this post sign up, a type post, I think. And let's change this right away. Always forget, and let's make it of the type action. And what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to the guide. No, oh, so no. So I'm going back here. I have here the auth endpoint, and I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste the endpoint in here. Well, if you haven't seen the first part of my guide, I teach you how to manage versions using Bubble, keeping sync Bubble and Xano. Not just the environment or the versions, but also the data sources. So I strongly suggest you to take a look at that add that part of the guide or the first part of my guide too. But yeah, that's something you can see in my blog. And also, I'm not going to implement it in here because I don't want to make this a very very long video, and this will take us a while. So I rather prefer to just use the test or the endpoints of the branch we are working on, and that's it. So yeah, that's first. We have the sign up. I'm going to copy the endpoint for the login. Another call. Let's make it post. Let's make it action. Post login. Paste this, and finally I'm going to copy this endpoint and I'm going to a new call. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's make it an action as well. Okay, so again, make sure that the three of these are used as action. Let's add the relevant information we need to make to initialize these calls. So for the sign up, if I press run, as you can see, I have this already structured JSON schema. I'm going to copy this, go back to this to the API connector and paste it. And here, actually, I'm not going to get into much details, but I will suggest you to put the variables outside of this. Just delete this. I'm going to paste this in here. So here, and I'm going to paste this in here. And I'm going to make this private because this must be exposed to the client side. And I'm going to check this include errors in response checkbox. And actually, I'm going to do this right away for the three of these calls. Always do that, guys. I strongly suggest you. It doesn't harm you to make it, and actually, it's a need. You will notice later down the road that checking this box is like a must because it will give you so much flexibility how you can handle errors in the future. But for now, let's just do this. Okay, let's name this test account one. Email will be test one, test one. I don't know. Oh, my bad. And something I forgot about this. Okay, this. I'm using this password because by default, Xano restricts your passwords to have 8 characters at least. You can configure this from the data table, from the user table, the password field, and also the sign up field. I think actually, if I take a look at the password, it doesn't have restriction there. But if you go to user and check the password, and press on settings, you can see that you have here these pre-configured filters and restrictions that you have to follow. So that's why I'm using this, because if you don't want to change that, we are going to just leave it as it is to don't mess with it. Okay, so cool. So now I have entered the yes. So now I have to put this between um, these things. And the reason I want to do this is because sometimes we will enter nothing, and this will pass the null value in here. So if I put the semicolons in here, it will return the string null. So that's why you have to be careful when setting this up, because um, otherwise you will lose control over the type of information you will be returning to the, or you will be passing to the API call. So now I have done this, I will initialize this call, and oops, there's an error. That's a bad thing because the user was created, right? Let's go to the functions. Let me see. Refresh token, return as refresh token, access token. So what was the issue again? I got to pause the video and debug this. Okay, so I found the issue, and the issue is that this is the auth login sign up in here. I This is not a correct path. The refresh token is the real path. So I'm going to save this. And actually, let's go to the database. I'm going to see the user table. This was created because, yeah, um, I messed it up. Okay, so now this should be fixed. Let's try again. Let's create this user again. Initialize the call, and there you have. We have created it successfully. We have in the body the access token, the refresh token, and here we have our error message. Let's save this, and yeah, now what we want to do is actually we're going to initialize this call in the login call now, and it's very similar. We will copy this, we will paste this, and basically what we're going to delete is the name. The name is the only thing that we don't need. So let's mark this, I mean. And again, here we will pass the email. Actually, let's copy the values in here. As this account is already created, we are going to use it. Oh, my bad. Let's go. And here we have a new set of tokens. Yep. So before closing this, I suggest you to copy the access token to your clipboard. Uh, Actually, mm, oh, it's a little bit hard to copy. Okay, this is the refresh one or access one? Oh, the refresh one. Oh god, my mistake. Sorry. So I'm going to copy the refresh token because this is the one we're going to use. And actually, I copied both of those, so I will show you how the type will restrict the refresh flow. Oh, I forgot to save. Okay, save. So now what I will do here is that I have the refresh call, but if I try to, as you remember, maybe let's go to the API tab, demo auth, and here we have the refresh token. I'm not taking any inputs, but if I try to initialize the call, I will see an error because I have to pass the authorization token. For that, what we're going to do is that we're going to add a header, enter authorization, and let's uncheck this. We have to concatenate the string bearer, bearer space, and the token. But actually, I'm going to use first the access token, and you will see that it will throw the error unauthorized because it's not um, of the type refresh. Um, but now if I pass the author token, what is this? The refresh token, then initialize the call. It should. Okay, I made a mistake when copying. Let me pause the video again. Okay, so I found the issue. It wasn't here in the key of the header authorization. So now let's try again. Let's pass the refresh token. I'm going to initialize the call. As you can see, I'm retrieving the access and the refresh token. So I will actually copy this one and keep it in here, save. I want to save this. And now I'm going to replace the token. Oh, those. Oh my God. Let me just copy one I have in here. This is the one. So I will pass the access token instead of the refresh token. I will initialize the call. And now I'm confused. So that wasn't okay. Let me try again to extract it. Let me initialize the call and save. Let me extract the access token from this call. Copy. Have mess in my clipboard. Sorry about that. Now I'm going to paste that. I'm going to reinitialize. And there you have unauthorized throws the error. We're returning back to the author. Actually, I'm going to copy this refresh token again. See, save, I mean, console. I'm going to replace it, reinitialize the call, and there you have again. It's working properly now. So that's how you set up your refresh token set point. I think this is the one. The step 7. So now let's jump to the step number 8. We're almost there, guys. There's 3 more steps, more or less 4 more steps. We have to create a simple form for login and sign up users, but before we connect everything, we're going to create the backend workflow I was telling you about, that will refresh the tokens every 30 minutes. Um, the reason that we are going to refresh them every 30 minutes is because uh, I it's a suggestion to use the half of the duration of your tokens. It's like a standard, you may say, to refresh the token. So if your token lasts, I don't know, 30 minutes, you should refresh them every 15 minutes. Yeah, that's it. So I have this created. I will eliminate it. I will delete that backend workflow I created earlier, and I want to create a new one from scratch. So we are going to call it refresh user auth tokens. Let's create a new event, new API workflow. Let's call it as the get said. Let's uncheck this expose as a public API workflow box. But we are going to actually check the ignore privacy rules when running the workflow. The parameter we're going to pass this is user, actually, the current user. And yeah, that's it. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to make a call to update or refresh our API calls. To do this, we are going to use the string bearer. We're making the refresh post refresh call we just created, space insert dynamic value user access token. No, sorry, my bad. Refresh token. There you go. Afterwards, when we do this, we will receive a response, and we will have to store this new information in the current user, right? Actually, it changes to current user. But before making the changes, I want to rescale these events. Actually, uh, oh, skill API workflow. Yes, and we are going to scale the very same endpoint that is I mean, the very same workflow that is being executed right now, and we're going to do it in 30 more minutes. So let's add 30 minutes, and the user will be the same user that is running right now. So let's just check this ignore privacy rules when running the workflow. So basically, what this is doing is that every 30 minutes, it's going to call it this API workflow or a backend workflow. It will create a new set of tokens, and it will scale a new refresh user out token workflow to execute in 30 minutes. So this is like an infinite loop that will be running. And yeah, that's great because it will keep our tokens updated or refreshed. So what next? Now that we have scaled this call again, we're going to add a few fields. The first field is the access token. The second is the refresh token, last updated, and the skill refresh workflow. So the access token comes from the result of step one, access token. Refresh token the same, refresh token. Last updated will be the current date actually, and the skill refresh workflow is the ID of this API workflow we just scheduled. So it will be the result of step two, which is actually ID that you can store in here. Now, why are we storing this ID? The reason is because from now on, when any user with the same account of this that has this flow running, every time the user logs in from a different browser to the same account, we will cancel this workflow, and we will scale a new one. Why is that? It's because if we scale a new API workflow every time that the user logs in, then we could have potentially infinite refresh flows schedule, and that will affect the performance of our application. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to do that, right? At the same time, if we don't scale this every time the user logs in, it could we have the risk that for some reason your application or your backend times out, so some of these refresh calls do not execute, and your user will remain logged out forever because he or she doesn't has a way to reschedule this sequence of refresh calls. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. With this endpoint is ready. This backend workflow, I mean. And now what we're going to do is that um, uh, we're going to connect the forms, the sign up form and the sign in forms. Those are the step 9 and the step 10. So let me go to the Xano login page where I have a few forms already created. Actually, I'm going to reload this page so you can see them. Oh, actually, this one has a small error here. Let's just change it like that. So we have the sign in view where we can enter the email and password. This will logs us in, and the sign up, which is basically the same form but with the input field name as well. So we can register the user and its name. So that's the only difference. But currently, I don't think there's any logic created for this stuff. Oh yeah, I have some stuff. So I'm going to just delete this stuff. Except for this. Okay. So we have the sign in form and the sign up form. Let's start with the sign up form. So what we want to do is that we want to check, we want to create first the user in the bubble side. Or you could alternatively go with the Xano side. What is the thing that is that for some reason, if the Xano side fails, we have more control over what we can do if after than when the sign up in the bubble side fails. So I like to start with the bubble side first, registering users in the bubble side first, because that way, if it fails, then the workflow will just stop and that's it. So sign the user up. We're going to use the email sign up value, password sign up value. Um, and you can select to remember the email or not. That's your decision. You can configure this as you want. Um, then what we will do is that we will make the Xano call to sign the user up. And here we're going to put between this the semicolons, the input. Uh, Actually, yeah, name sign up value. This this is last no email. Email sign up. And yeah, this is what we password. Well, actually, this is not how I frequently do thing. What I will do actually is that I will delete this and look for JSON format as JSON safe, and this will automatically format it as JSON safe for you. That means that if the name has colons between I don't know within the name, then it will codify it in a way that it won't be read it as colons in the JSON format, so it won't break your schema. We are going to do the same with this other call. Actually, it should be easier. And JSON save, and here we are going to actually do the same. Password setup. It will be JSON free. Oh, uh, right, you JSON save. And that's the word. So now we are creating this. Now, what could happen if for some reason this call fails? Then we would like to terminate. Well, not terminate. We would like to delete the current user, which is my account, the account you just registered. But also, I would like to log the current user out. My bad. And why are we doing this in this order? It doesn't make sense, right? Well, for some reason, Bubble has this small, like, I don't know if I should call it bug, but if you delete the current user, it will be deleted, but you will be still logged in. So you have to log out actually in order to be um, out of the account. And we want to do, and then we are going to terminate this workflow. And the way to discriminate this is by using um, this this boolean of the Xano call that checks if this code is returning an error or not. And how do we enable this? From the plugins tab, the API connector, we have this include errors in response. I told you about. You have to check that. Always check that, guys. So now I'm going to check if it return an error. If it is yes, then I want to delete the current user. I want to log him current user out, and then I want to terminate this workflow. If it doesn't return an error, then it will skip all of these three steps, and we are going to schedule a new API workflow. Uh, this API workflow will be refresh out tokens, schedule result of the no, my bad, sorry, what's the consider there? Will be a creation date, current date, and this will be plus 30 minutes. The user will be current user. You can ignore privacy rules when running this. The reason I'm ignoring privacy rules is because actually a suggestion I make to you guys is that in the privacy tab we have these fields created, but we have all the fields of the current user, but you can actually hide the refresh token. And the reason is because you will actually never use it in the front end, right? You will always make the refresh request from the server side. So this shouldn't, or you don't have to expose this to the client side. That's why I keep it private, even if it is the current user that is watching this information. So getting back to this, to the workflows. Now we have this. We are signing up the user. We are signing up in Bubble. Also, then if it's success, then we are going to create the account in the Xano side. If it fails, then we are going to delete the current user, log the user out, and terminate this workflow. But if successfully create the account in the Xano side, it's going to skip all this flow, and we are going to scale a new flow, a new refresh out user out tokens. Now, what we are going to do in here is that we are going to make some changes to the current user. So we are going to add the access token, the refresh token, the last updated, and the school refresh workflow. And this will be the result of the Xano call in the step 2. This 2, last updated, will be current time, and this will be the result of step 6. So now, in the next 30 minutes, you will be refreshed. The tokens will be refreshed and will be stored in the user table. And if we're in our application, well, you can fetch the newest information doing a query, or use the current user and WebSockets to use the updated token in the front end, access token in the front end. So that's it. That's a sequence to register a new user, to sign them up. Here you can afterwards create some kind of navigation, or whatever is the next step on your flow of your application. And that's for the sign up process. And let's see how it works in this side. Or actually, let's jump directly into the signing process, and then we can check the other one. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to actually make the Xano call to log in the users. Here we're going to input passwords, email login, value, JSON save. This will be password, login, value, JSON save. There you go. So we are going to log the user in. We are going to terminate the flow if this login for some reason fails. Result of step 1, return an error. And actually, a good practice is to show a message. I installed this plugin called Error Alert, which is very easy to use. I'm going to use it just because I want to show you guys works. I will enter a standard error alert. It will be of the type error, and this will be um, I don't know, wrong credentials or something like that. I'm going to raise this, and I'm going to show this only when the Xano code return an error. So after this worked, then we're logging the user in. We're going to create the email. We're going to insert the email login. It's value, uh, password, login value. And here you could select to stay logged in or not. If you select yes, then this session will last 1 year in this browser. But if you check no, I think it will last only 1 day. And you can check if you want to remember the email or not. So after the user is logged in, what we want to do is that we want to uh, schedule uh, the API workflow to refresh our tokens. This will be current date time. User will be current user. But before scaling this, what we are going to do actually is that we are going to cancel an event. We are going to cancel a scale API workflow, and this will be the one we had scheduled earlier before when we registered or where the last time we logged in. So this will be canceled, and we are going to start a new one. And the reason is what I explained to you earlier. Um, we could have already another flow running, so we don't want to have several flows running at the same time. That doesn't really make sense, and will be how to say this could affect significantly your performance of your app, as you will have redundant workflows running in your backend. So instead, we're going to cancel first the already scheduled refresh workflow, and then we're going to schedule a new one. And when we schedule this one, this will run in 30 minutes actually. Now we make changes to the current user. Access token, refresh token, that's updated, schedule system one, access token, system one, refresh token, current daytime. And this is the result of step 6. So now when we log in, we are doing is that we are logging in the Xano side. If it fails, it will. If this login fails for some reason, it will return this error message and it will terminate the workflow. If it doesn't, then it will skip these 2 steps and will log the user in Bubble. Then it will cancel the scheduled refresh workflow, and we will schedule a new one, and then we will change the access token, refresh token, and the refresh workflow ID in the current user, and we will update the last refresh or last update field. So that's for the 9th and 10th, I think. Yes. Now, yeah, one last step I want to show you is how do you handle, how do you make sure that the process is still running in the backend. So if it doesn't, when your token expire, I want to keep my users out of the platform. It shouldn't happen, or at least it shouldn't happen often. It could rarely happen time to time if your platform is under a lot of stress. There are a lot of calls, and some of the refreshing calls in the backend fail or timeout. Then it's a good idea to have a flow in the front end to kick users out. Um, in case that the token expires. So how do we do this? Basically, what we are going to do, we are going to create a new event, uh, which is do every X seconds. In this case, we are going to trigger this every 1 minute or 5 minutes. That's on you. You can select when do you want to execute this, and we are going to check that every 1 minute. We are going to check if in the last 35 minutes a refresh happened for this user. If it did, then it will run. It won't run. It will do nothing. But if it hasn't been updated or refreshed in the last 35 minutes, we will assume that the backend flow is broken, failed, or something happened, and we will log our users out. So how do we do this? We go to the. We're going to create a test page. Actually, this is a test page, right? Yeah, actually, I have it created, and we are going to create this from scratch again. Yeah, we'll do this every 60 seconds. That means every minute. And we're going to check that current user last update plus 35 minutes is less than current date. Basically, again, what this means is if in the last 35 minutes uh, it hasn't been refreshed, what I want to do is execute this event. And what we are going to do is basically log the user out, and then yeah, you can move the user to another page or something. You can run the logic, do whatever is the logic you want to run. But yeah, this is like a safety in case that the authentication in the backend or the token refresh flow fails in the backend. And I think that's it. Need to ever table, check that token type is access for a message to. Oh yeah. And one last thing is that to the endpoints connected to the access token, which actually we are going to create one to just to test it. Let's go back. We are going to do in the demo in here. I'm going to add a new endpoint. I'm going to start from scratch. Will be get at the time test access token. We are going to enable also user authentication. What we're going to do is that we're going to add a precondition here to the function precondition, and we're going to check that the authorization token we are receiving of is of the type access. If it's a refresh token, the one we are passing, it will throw an error. So this will be unauthorized, authorized, and save. And we are going to create a variable, and this will be success. So basically what we are going to do is that we're going to pass this variable, and we're going to call it result. So it will be result success message if this runs successfully. I'm going now to copy the endpoint URL. I'm going back to my to the plugin API connector, and I'm going to create a new group. Here I'm going to expand this. It will be of the type get. There you go. And this will be an action. And we are going to pass the authorization header. So I'm going to put in here bearer space. Let me jump into this. I think I have enough time to use one of the tokens we created earlier. So I'm going to going to make a copy of the refresh token, another copy of the token. So now if I go down here and I oh, here it is, and I pass the access token and I initialize this call, I should receive a result success message. There you go. We have the success message. But now if I change my token type to this one, to the refresh token, I initialize this. it will receive the error. So I'm going to change it again. Uh, so yeah, that's it. That's how do you authenticate users. I know that there are maybe some details that you would like to get more information about, but yeah, sadly, if these videos are already lasting like an hour, I don't want to make it too large. So yeah, oh, I think I messed with it. Let's just roll back. And yeah, that's it. So essentially, to summarize, what we did is that we created an authentication system that you can use in your application using the built-in Bubble app, the built-in user authentication system of Bubble, complemented with the Xano JWT tokens. We just made an API request to Xano, passing the access token. You can connect this. You can expose this to the. Oh, where is this? You can expose this to the front end by checking the private. So now when a user makes this call, for instance, you can pass the bearer. You can concatenate the bearer space with the access token of the user to make this type of calls. And yeah, I think that's it. So here, as I said, we have the steps. We created the auth system to refresh the tokens, and we created the forms to sign up and sign in users using Bubble and Xano. And yeah, that's it. Just to show you how this will be working, I will run a test very quickly into the sign up here. So we're going to call it test2.com, name test2, password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. I don't know. Okay, so let's run this step by step to see that what is going on. I'm going to move this up. So firstly, oh, let's move this up here. Run next. So we are going to sign up the user in Bubble. It was successfully created because we moved to the next step without an issue. Now we are pushing this to Xano. The user was created and successfully, so no error was retrieved. So these steps are being skipped. And now we are scheduling the refresh out tokens for the current date time plus 30 minutes. And we're making changes to recommended user to store the access token, the last updated, and this one, and the refresh token as well. So run. And now if I go to the Bubble tab and go to data, app data, here I have the user I just created, I have the token and everything. If I go to the logs and I look for the scheduler show, I can see this. This is the refresh flow I just scheduled. And finally, yeah, let's check the Sanocyte database and the user table, and here's the test account I just created. And this one is the one I created by initializing the sign up call in the API Connect. So I hope this you found this helpful. I hope that you like this. Yeah, if you have any feedback, just leave it in the comments. And that's it. Bye bye.